You know, as weird as it is to be the subject of a crime show, this place is pretty cool, Dunstan said as they walked around. Dex had read a book when he was little, the Disney picture book about the movie Pinocchio, and he remembered the place that Lampwick had taken the little puppet to before he'd turned into a jackass. Pleasure Island had seemed really nice, a real heaven on earth, right up until they had shipped the donkey children off to the salt mines. Dex wondered where the salt mines were in this place, because he knew there had to be one. There was a game room full of old arcade games, Pac-Man and Galaga, and other stuff Dex had sometimes seen through the windows of the old arcade. There was a TV in there, a big flat-screen one, and the box attached to it gave it more channels than Dex had ever dreamed of. Some of the kids he saw in there had been complaining about the lack of anything to watch, and Dex could tell that these were kids who had never had to fight for TV time in the halfway house or the new foster home. Dunstan understood that too, which was pretty clear, but Masha hadn't shown a lot of interest in anything in the game room. She mostly just stuck close to Dex and tried to look small. She'd have to get over that, Dex knew, if she wanted to survive around here. "So, Dunstan," Dex said as they came around and found the door to the outside, "how long were you in the system?" Dunstan looked at him like he might be a mind reader too, but Dex just grinned and Masha broke ranks and headed for the double doors to the playground. It wasn't really the outside, but the walls of the room looked like a schoolyard, and the lights were hot enough to make you think they might be UV or something. There was a big play structure, a kickball field, even a swimming pool. Dex looked at all that water greedily. How long had it been since he'd been in a pool? He couldn't swim very well. Swimming wasn't something you did a lot of when you were living rough, but he could swim pretty okay. If he looked at that footlocker near his bed, he thought he might find a bathing suit in there. As Masha ran to the playground, a kid a little older than her approaching to play with her, Dunstan took a seat next to Dex on a nearby bench. The sun was nice, but Dex knew he would be hungry for some real sun pretty soon. "So how'd you know I was in the system?" Dunstan asked. "Are you a brain like her?" "Nah," Dex said with a chuckle. "I just know the look. If you'd lived in my city, I'd have probably recruited you to my gang, the Weird Boys. Me, Smoke, and Wizard were all special, kinda like her and you. Smoke could be unseen if he stood still enough, and Wizard could mess up technology and then fix it again sometimes. I've got the brain blast that kinda stuns people." It did more than that sometimes, but Dex didn't think Dunstan needed to know that. "Sounds pretty cool," Dunstan said, looking up at Masha as she screamed, but turned out to be delight rather than one of pain. "I had some friends at the group home, but they weren't like me. They were just regular kids. I'm surprised this place didn't want all you guys." "I guess they did," Dex said, his smile slipping a little, "but there was an incident. I don't think I was supposed to be here at all, Dunstan. I think I was the silver medal in all this. He tried to think about it, but it hurt him. I think Wizard was the one they really wanted. I remember a little bit about what happened, and I'm pretty sure Wizard got killed that night while we were making a break for it." "Damn," Dunstan said. "That's rough. Did you..." He seemed to be weighing his words. Did you see it happen?" Dex shook his head, but didn't stop the tears from coming back. "I don't know. I think I did, but I did something after that, and it kinda got foggy. I think I brain blasted too hard, and maybe I injured myself. I don't know, but I do remember that Wizard's dead, and I'm here." Dunstan looked down at his feet. "I've never seen anybody die before. He hesitated, feeling it was time to share, but not sure where to begin. "You didn't just take a secret like that and not share one of your own." "It's all right," Dex said, wiping his eyes before Masha could see. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." "It's nothing concrete," Dunstan said, "but I think the lady who abducted me was my mom." Dex looked at him oddly. "What, like she was just coming to get you?" "No," Dunstan said slowly. Not like that. I don't think she knew who I was until I touched her. That's how it works, I think. I told you guys that, right? Dex nodded, looking up as a group of kids came into the playground. Well, when I touched her, it was like she saw what I was seeing. I think some of the people who abduct us used to be like us. She had powers, but she doesn't anymore. She remembers having powers, remembers leaving me on the doorstep of a fire station, and then I felt something as we touched. It was like her power was calling out to mine. Dex shook his head, looking at the group as they went to talk to Masha and her new friend. That's messed up, man. I can't believe your own mom would do something like that to you, that she would bring you to a place like this. Yeah, well, it's not like she's really my mom or anything. She left me to get back to work. It's not like I mean that much to her. Dex felt like he wanted to say more, but Masha called to them and asked if they wanted to play kickball with the group that had arrived. Dex looked up at Dunstan. Feel like kicking a little ball with these kids? When Dunstan looked up, the grin he'd worn most of the day was back in place. Hell yeah, let's teach these kids a little something about chasing rubber balls. They went to the field, following behind a cluster of younger kids, and enjoyed a few hours of kicking a ball as hard as they could. It was cathartic, somehow. So Gerald, Rebecca said, looking at him from the side of the Oz book that she'd been pretending to read for the past half hour. What do you make of all this? Gerald didn't glance up from the Sherlock Holmes mystery he'd been reading, but she knew he had heard her. Honestly, I think we're lab rats in a really nice cage. Rebecca rolled her eyes. Well, obviously, but what do you make of it? The odd boy just shrugged again, and Rebecca could have gladly smacked him with the book she was reading. He insisted on following her as they explored, telling her that it was better to explore in groups, and they found the game room, the playground, and then the library. It was huge, and Rebecca thought they might have everything ever printed. It was 2 floors of floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and she'd found everything from Game of Thrones to Grapes of Wrath here. It was all organized in neat rows of information, everything in its proper place, and Rebecca could have gladly spent a few hours here without complaints. Gerald was right, though. This was just a nice cage for the rats to run in, and the rats only ran until it was time for the test to begin. What I mean is, how do you think we get out of here? Gerald flipped a page, his eyes roaming over the words, which made her think he might actually be reading. We don't, he said matter-of-factly. Not until they let us out. Rebecca sighed in disgust. As far as friends went, Gerald left a lot to be desired. Why would you want to, anyway? Gerald asked, eyes glued to the book. Why wouldn't you want to? She challenged. You're being held here, against your will, by people you don't know. You call us lab rats, and that may not be far off, but that means we're only here till they finish experimenting on us. What if that kills us? What if it does worse than kill us? How are you so calm? The last earned her an angry shh from the librarian in the red scrubs, and Rebecca looked down at her book again. Rebecca, do you know why you're here? She shook her head, and Gerald turned another page. Neither do I, but I know what's waiting for me where I came from. I came from a home with an alcoholic mother and an abusive father who makes and uses drugs. The prospect of becoming like both of them makes me think it might be better to die here. You say they might kill us here. Well, if I'd stayed at home, that might is a certainty. My dad would have killed me. It was only a matter of time. Here, however, I might manage to get out alive. Rebecca gave him a weird look. I never understand how to talk to you. It's not even like talking to another kid. I had to grow up pretty fast, Gerald said, glancing down at the string between them. It was still blue, but every now and again it would throb red like an angry tooth. He didn't like that, but it was better than it could be. Rebecca was clearly considering leading him into something dangerous, but he'd cross that bridge when the time came. Gerald had seen other strings today, some red, some orange, and a couple of green ones. He'd seen a blue one for just a moment as it stretched from a little group walking towards the playground, but it had only been for a moment. They might be important, or they might not be. Only time would tell. For the moment, he had a friend, and that was enough. "I'm suddenly feeling hungry," he said to Rebecca, and she looked at the clock and realized it was 6 p.m. Where had the day gone, she wondered. She was hungry too, and agreed easily as the two headed off. Tomorrow might bring tests, it might bring pain, but today was today, and Gerald could smell something wafting from the cafeteria that smelled better than the frozen dinners his family was likely eating, and that sounded fine to him. As they walked off, Gerald thought he could get used to living like this. Rebecca, however, worried that she would never find a way out. A tone sounded for 20 seconds at 9, and a voice called all of them to the cafeteria. Mr. Cutter was once again on stage, grinning like a maniac, and Masha remembered again the flash she had gotten when he was at her house. He had wanted to slap her, she knew that much. Now it seemed he might get a chance. "I do hope that all of you have enjoyed your exploration, but now it's time for bed. We ask that you return to your assigned beds. Your footlockers have your name on them, and only your thumbprint will open them, so don't bother swapping bunks. Your class schedule will be handed out tomorrow at breakfast, so your first class will start at 0800 hours. I would suggest you get some sleep, but if you'd rather attend class tired, then stay up as late as you want. Regardless, the doors to the activity rooms will be locked at 2100 every night. That includes the cafeteria. So off you go, and pleasant dreams." The students got up, some of them slower than others, and migrated back towards the dorms. Masha fell in with Dex and Dunstan, but she couldn't shake what he had said. Sleep in your own bed? Masha hadn't slept alone her whole life. She'd be too scared. As smart as she was still only 6. She was the youngest of the students, and as they got closer to the dorms, she lost some of the assuredness she had been dragging around throughout the day. Suddenly, she was very much a 6-year-old girl who wanted her Pooh Bear, her nightlight, and her mommy. Above all else, she wanted her mommy. "Dex," she asked, and he looked down at her almost expectantly. "Can I sleep with you?" Dex opened his mouth, but a catty peal of laughter sounded to his left. "Jesus, they start young here, don't they?" He turned to find the girl with the platinum blonde hair from earlier. Her attitude hadn't improved after 3 squares, and Dex suddenly remembered that look from earlier that day. Dex stood up a little straighter, trying not to let her get into his head, but he didn't trust her anywhere near Masha. Someone at one of the group homes he had been at had told someone else they had a puppy strangling look about them, and this girl had it in spades. "How about it, Dex?" she said, putting on some fake baby talk. "You want to sweep with a little girl?" Some of the girls around her laughed, but before Dex could respond, Dunstan saved him the trouble. "Dex, I thought we were keeping the sleepover a secret. It's invitation only anyway, so you can't come," he said, turning to the girl and shooing her away. She got red in the face, moving off with the 3 girls that she had surrounded herself with. Dunstan smiled down at Masha, and Dex couldn't help but grin too. It was infectious, it seemed, and when they got back to the dorm, Masha got her bedding and Dunstan grabbed his as they moved to set up around Dex's bunk. The lights didn't get low till around 2200, but as they softened, the party was just getting started. They sat up telling stories, all 3 of them laughing as Dex talked about a time he had tricked food out of a store for his family, or the time that Dunstan had encountered new friends at the group home. Masha mostly sat and listened, her eyes getting heavier and heavier as she basked in the love of her new friends. Dex had just looked up, seeing the digital clock showing 2250, when Dunstan made a shh sound and pointed at Masha. She was snoring, curled up in her bedding like a cat in its basket, and Dunstan waved as he collected up his bedding and departed. Dex got under his own covers, letting Masha sleep as he turned in himself. They weathered the first night together, drawing strength from each other as each took comfort in the other. It appeared that Dex had traded one strange family for another, and the transition wasn't as odd as he would have thought. Helping the weak and the strange was something that Wizard could have gotten behind, and he thought that he would have probably done the same thing if he were here and Dex were dead. "New bunch of weird boys," Dex said with a yawn, drifting off to the sound of Masha asleep beside him. As the kids slept and snored, the specter of Ripley hung above them and watched. Whether they knew it or not, they were all flies in his web now. They were his to drain, to store, to sacrifice, and he would do all that was needed to see his goals achieved. As he watched them through the well-hidden cameras, he couldn't help but grin wickedly. 20 potential sparks, each of them looking to be the great flame I use to light our future. He didn't tire. Ripley didn't need sleep like others did, but he knew he would snatch a few hours before class tomorrow. He would want to watch the new students begin their education. "For how?" he asked no one in particular, the monitors lighting his eyes like the orbs of some god computer. "Does the spider find the juiciest fly if he doesn't sit patiently and bide his time?" You're still here. Thanks so much for joining us for tonight's spooky tale. If you'd like a little bit more spooky in your life, why not click on one of the videos that appears at the end of our story, or maybe head on over to one of our playlists where you can get your fill of spooky content. If you like your spooky a little more tactile, I've got a new book that's come out. If you'd like your own copy, there's a link below in the description where you can get your own copy of my spooky book. If you like what you see here on the channel and think you might like to support in a more monetized way, then why not come over to Patreon or become a member on YouTube? Speaking of, let's go ahead and thank our members now. Thanks to Civ Garstad, Unicorn Hollow, and Army Dude for being our Spooky Ghost contributors. Thanks to Janet, Lee Kendall, Saikat, Ronda J, Sue Casper, and Valinator for being our Spooky Skeleton contributors. And thanks to Oh Snap, Hi Stacy, Winter, Xaronan, Stephanie Carrington, Tyler Parker, Cinnamon Fox, Grim Reaper, TomBoiTopUwU, and Queen Sheebah for being our Ghostly Reader tier contributors. And a big thanks to Scott Donahue for being our Ghostly Writer tier contributor. Thanks everyone, we just couldn't do the show without you. If you'd like to support the channel, then come on down to Patreon or become a member on YouTube. Spooky Skeleton tier contributors, that's our $5 tier, get their spooky 12 hours early at 8:30 a.m. as opposed to 8:30 p.m. my time, of course. And while Ghostly Reading is only a tier that's available on Patreon, you get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one on your doorstep in, hopefully, a timely manner. If you'd like a book, we have many on Amazon. I've got links below if you'd like to follow those. Should get you to my page so you can buy any one of my 8 books I believe we're up to now. I'm sure they'd look really nice on your shelf, and I'll sign them for you if you can find me out in the wild. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.